Test, test.
Okay, roll call. Legislator Frost,
Here.
Legislator Calamus,
Here.
Legislator Mosier,
Here.
Legislator Leindecker,
Here.
Legislator Nortz,
Here.
Legislator Moorhan, Legislator Leviker,
Here.
Legislator Osborne,
Here.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Here.
and Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here. Would everyone please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? Legislator Calamus, would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, this opportunity to serve the people of Lewis County. Help us to all be mindful and grateful for all the things that we have. And we ask for your wisdom and discernment in all our decision making. We ask this in your name. Amen.
We have a public hearing tonight, which I'm going to open now. The CDBG funding for community development, public infrastructure, housing, public facilities, small business, and economic development needs under program year 2024 New York State CDBG funding applications in the amount not to exceed $1.5 million. Is there anyone here that would like to comment on that CDBG funding? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll leave that open for 30 minutes and we'll move on to certificates of or presentation by the Harrisville SEP team for presentation with Herb Frost going to introduce the speakers, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to introduce two groups of high schoolers from Harrisville Central School, Haley Meager, Elaine Levantia, and Ethan Levantia. Group 2, Maya Bernhard and Nadia Atkinson. These groups both had science experiments chosen by a national review board for student spaceflight experiment program. Both experiments were tested in outer space. And Ms. Taylor, can you and the students please come forward for a presentation?
I'm Ethan Levantia. I am a sophomore at Harrisville Central School, and this, you want to introduce yourself now?
I'm Elaine Levantia. I'm a senior. I'm Haley Meager. I'm a senior at Harrisville, and we are the Mission 16. I'm Maya Bernhardt. I'm a senior sophomore. I'm Nadia Atkinson. I graduated last year from Harrisville, and we are the Mission 17. Ms. Taylor. Oh, what's involved in the program?
Okay, so the SSEP stands for the Student Spaceflight Experiment Program. It is a nationwide program which is typically ran through universities. We're from upstate New York, and our program was ran through Clarkson University. It was founded in June of 2010 by the National Center for Earth and Space Science Education as a partnership with NanoRacks. Program gives students in grades 5 through 12 and also undergraduate students the ability to create experiments that will be sent up to the International Space Station. Research teams are typically composed of 3 to 5 students, and The experiments are conducted by astronauts aboard the International Space Station, while a control variable is performed on Earth.
So the planning of the experiments was left completely up to the students. So the students can study whatever they want and the effects of microgravity on it. So experiments cover a wide variety of topics, including biology and material sciences. Once a student group picks a topic, they are assigned research mentors through the participating university, including graduate students and professors. So some past experiments that have been done are, as you can see right there.
So going into the actual design of the experiment, it starts with an abstract, which is just a short summary of what the research you would like to conduct is about. And then you go into your experimental material handling requirements. These are details regarding what materials will be used, where they'll be sourced, and how exactly the experiment will be needed to how the experiment will be handled on the spaceflight. The proposal includes the question being addressed by the experiment, and a justification as to why that is a question that we would even ask. And then it also includes the actual design. The design includes all of the details. So every single step is explained all the way through. And it also explains why we chose those exact steps. So while designing the experiment, the student groups controlled the topic of the experiment, the materials, the thermal control of the experiment, the times for astronaut interactions, the type of experimental container called a mini lab, which you'll see later in the presentation, being used, and the method of collecting results. We can see a example crew interaction timeline on your right.
So the limitation, this is the mini lab that we had to fit our entire experiment in. As you can see, it's very small. It's only 8.4 millimeters, and we had to design our entire experiment around that too, because there's so many limitations to how much stuff we can send. So this is just a quick timeline of events for mission 16 and 17. Mission 16 started in 2021, and the actual experiment, the writing of the experiment took place in 2021 and early 2022, and the experiment was conducted in later 2022, particularly in November. And yeah, now it's continued till now, and we're presenting for you guys. Our results were analyzed in 2023. And then mission 17 took place in 2022. So that's when the writing of the experiment took place. And the actual experiment was conducted in 2023, and the results were analyzed in 2024.
Okay, so mission 16 was the title of our experiment was the effects of microgravity on
Chlamydomonas reef.
It's a strand of algae.
It's
Scientific
algae.
names are hard to pronounce. Everybody, knows that.
So yeah, our research focused on exposing the algae to optimal nutrient levels and then measuring the growth between Earth and space. Yeah, its nickname is Clammy because it's hard to pronounce.
Prior to this, we basically knew nothing on algae. Only thing I knew was like it was in the pool.
Yeah, and this experiment was largely inspired by algae growth in ponds in my backyard. We actually have the first ever sample I took out of my pond to bring in to be like, hey, let's do our experiment on this. It's really cool. It's something you find in everyday life. And as we learned, it's really applicable in space research. So solving problems with our experiment. So we talked earlier about the limitations of the experiment, which again is like the size of the tube itself, which is really small, especially when you're trying to design an entire scientific experiment with different compounds and stuff. It also had to be conducted in the dark, which for a photosynthetic organism like algae is kind of difficult to deal with.
So we had to get it to produce energy in a different way. We had to use fermentation instead of photosynthesis, which actually drove us to use a sodium acetate solution. And we had to make sure growth only happened on the ISS because we were trying to isolate growth in microgravity, not here on Earth or in transit to the ISS. So to do this, we used a fixative to freeze our cells once they were returning to Earth. There was also a strict page limit we had to stick to, which we definitely struggled with. And there were limitations on how often we could do our preliminary research because of COVID-19. I think all of us had COVID at some point
Except for
during
me.
the experiment, except for Ethan and the North Country weather.
So our experiment focused on the growing of a strand of algae called clammy. As we've established, it's very hard to pronounce. So the algae would be contained in a very small area before entering space, then allowed to grow in a larger nutrient solution while in space, and then growth would be frozen with a fixative. Experiments would be running similar conditions on Earth and space with the experiments that we run on Earth in the same exact setup as it was in space. And the only variable would be microgravity. So the exact question being addressed is when exposed to microgravity in the harsh and no light conditions, our algae will face on the ISS. How does the growth rate compared to specimens cultivated on Earth in similar conditions?
Oh, and up there you can see the patch for mission 16, which was actually made by a student from Texas. We met her when we went down to Florida, which we can talk about later.
A large portion of the writing process was about justifying why our experiment should be conducted. Here's a simplified version of why our experiment was precedented. Algae is a vital role in the ecosystem of the ocean and aquatic and water. Algae can be used as an alternative fuel source, has a wide variety of uses. It can be a fertilizer, and there are a ton of other stuff you can see as well.
Something I found really interesting about doing our experiment on algae and something that drove me to want to do it in the first place was the fact that it actually accounts for over half of the amount of world oxygen. So it really conducts a lot more photosynthesis than trees even. So it could be really useful in the future for trying to battle climate emissions.
And also another interesting point is that an estimated 30% of an astronaut's diet could be replaced by using algae because it's very nutrient rich.
Yeah, I don't know how it tastes.
Yeah.
Very good. So our preliminary testing allowed us to gather more data and better understand our results. So basically it told us, when we get our results back from the actual experiment, what can we expect from past research? We had a total of 21 different mini tubes that we tested, which tested different concentrations of cells and were grown in either the dark or the light to get more data there, and were made of entirely different materials sometimes because we had our plastic tubes, and then we also had to test the silicon tubes that would be used in the actual experiment. It helped us to determine what chemicals would be best for stimulating growth, what concentration of algae and chemicals we should use, differences in growth in light or darkness, and up there you can see some pictures of us conducting our preliminary experiments. Actually, the bottom picture is with Dr. Alicia Lamb. Yes, Dr. Alicia, who is a graduate student that guided us throughout the writing and conducting of our research.
So calculating the results. So another important part of the experiment was producing tangible results. If you can't measure your experiment, then how do you really know what it actually accomplished? So to get results from preliminary tests and our actual experiments, we analyzed the cells under a microscope and then counted them using a specialized type of slide called a chemosynthesis.
And that's just examples of what the algae cells would look under a microscope. Those are just pictures from the internet because it's really hard to get a picture within a microscope.
Here are some pictures from when we were being interviewed and when we were on the 7 News channel.
Yeah, that was a really cool experience. This was after our experiment was chosen. It really helped us feel like recognized, I would say, for all the hard work we put into writing our experiment. Because it was a really long process. It took months to do the actual writing and then the preliminary testing. So it was really a gratifying moment. And it meant a lot to see us up there, even though we're from such a small community.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I actually got to get out of class for the interview. So that was actually
Pretty
neat.
Okay. Our mini lab. So our going into like the actual design of our experiment a little more. So we chose to have 3 little sections within our experiment, and those were all by design. They all had very distinct purposes, which we had to talk about during the writing of our experiment. So chamber 1 was the initial growth of the algae cells, which didn't have enough nutrients to grow really a lot. That's what the lack of nitrogen is for. It contained our starting algae cells and was nutrient rich enough to supplement the algae before it would grow on the International Space Station. Then our biggest volume was volume 2, which had our nutrient solution, our nitrogen, which is one of the minerals that algae needs to grow. And its purpose was to help feed the algae once it was in space. And chamber 3 was a biological fixative, which preserved the cells and allowed us to get results when they returned to Earth.
So astronauts interacted with our experiment using the so upon arrival, astronauts opened the first clamp A, and would shake the experiment gently for 5 seconds. This exposed the algae to a nutrient mixture, which would help stimulate algae growth. And then 5 days before return, before transport back to Earth, astronauts opened clamp B and shook it again for 5 seconds, which released formalin, our fixative, and preserved the algae cells for study. And to the right, that is how it was formatted in our.
And underneath that, you can actually see that's the correspondence we got back from NanoRacks, the company that was helping to run it, telling us when the astronauts actually interacted with our experiment.
So at Clarkson University, we used their biology lab to actually assemble the 2 tubes. The one tube that would be staying here on Earth and the other tube that would go up to the space station. We are observed by representatives of the program and NASA. We created nutrient solutions from scratch. Like, we didn't have these, so we had to make HSA and nitrogen combination, and we also had to make formalin. We transferred it into the nutrient solution, and we assembled them into 3 chambers. And we learned, and some important takeaways from this was we learned important steps in preparing experimental material, and we got to use lab equipment we would have not been able to use in like actual school.
So conducting the experiment. So on November 26th, our experiment was sent to space on a SpaceX rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida, with a payload named Ranger. At the same time, we started our experiment here on Earth. The only difference was, again, the gravity conditions, which is the whole point of these experiments, is to test the effects of microgravity. And to completely cut off the Earth tube from sunlight, we threw it in a closet.
Are pictures from the live stream of when our experiment was launched to head to the ISS. We were supposed to watch it at Cape Canaveral, but there were like a lot of scheduling conflicts. So we did go to Kennedy Space Center, but we did not get to actually watch it. But it was still amazing just knowing that something that we worked on was being sent up in that.
Yeah, we were actually in my living room when it launched. We had like a bunch of people over. It was like a little party. Yeah, it was very cool.
Here are some of the pictures from when we actually went to Florida. Most of these pictures are from when we were on our way there. We had to go through like 2 separate airports, I believe.
Yeah.
And some of those pictures are from the Kennedy Space Center. That big building is their vehicle assembly building where they build the shuttles, I believe.
Yeah, so as part of like winning the program, I don't want to say winning, being selected to conduct our experiment, we actually got to go down to Cape Canaveral. It was, paid for through the university, which was really an opportunity I wouldn't have had otherwise. It was amazing. A really special experience. Oh,
And-
and we visited a zoo.
Yeah, we
while were
did.
there.
We had an extra day in Florida, so
We visited a
Yeah.
zoo and a museum. It was very cool. It was amazing.
Yeah, I saw monkeys. It was really cool. And what was also really cool was our results. To obtain the results, we used the same method of counting algae cells, and we compared. So the Earth experiment, which was our control value, had 4.5 million cells per milliliter, while the space experiment, which was the experimental variable, had 3 million cells per milliliter. Both these cell counts were on average much greater than our cell counts from the preliminary tests. So although algae does not grow as well in microgravity as it does on Earth, it still grows. And the cells were smaller and darker in color, and they were in like larger clumps and like larger little groups, while the Earth cells were larger and greener.
So that brings us to our experiment, or mission 17. Our experiment was about the reproduction rates of fruit flies with the effect of microgravity. So we also were able to go to Florida. We were again supposed to go to see our launch, but unfortunately, just due to launch delays, it actually launched the day after we got back. Yeah, the day after we got back. But as you can see, we also were able to visit the Kennedy Space Center visitation center, and we also went to the zoo. So,
So our inspiration was from a student who was no longer in any science classes. She had decided to plant a banana, hoping that a banana tree would grow in the back of Miss Taylor's prep room. So the OG pot.
this is where it all started for us. So,
Yeah, so obviously a banana tree did not grow. It just rotted and attracted a lot of fruit flies, which became like kind of a joke because we were like desperately like trying to find something to research for this opportunity, and people kept saying we should use fruit flies because they were everywhere and we couldn't get rid of them. So that became like a catalyst for our idea.
So luckily for us, fruit flies are actually really important to science. They're considered model organisms because of how close their DNA is to ours. And they're used in a lot of genetic experiments because of their short lifespan. We can do a lot of population experiments. And genetic experiments are conducted quite a bit on the ISS. They are also, we also wanted to see if there was a more efficient way to produce fruit flies to be used on the ISS because of how often they are used in the experiments.
So our experiment was mostly to test the reproduction rate of fruit flies with microgravity, but it was also to see how they would react in microgravity environment. So our experiment also had a type 3 mini lab. So we had 3 sections, and we had 10 males in one section, females in one, and then we had a smaller section with the same kind of fixative actually as the mission 16 that would freeze the specimens at the end of our experiment at the end of the week.
So our preliminary testing and experiments, they were all a little bit different. So we first wanted to see how long the flies would actually live with limited oxygen. And Others were to test what kind of food we should use because we had quite a few different options. And also to see if they would reproduce in the same conditions, just without the microgravity variant. All of these experiments taught us something that we later used in our experiment to tweak and just try our best to perfect the experiment.
So Armin, that's a picture of our control group. So when we went to load at Clarkson University, we put food in two of the sections, the two sections with the fruit flies, and then we did one section at a time. So we added the food, and then we put the fruit flies in one section, and we closed it, and then we did the same thing for the next one, and then we actually had a very, very small section for our third one, with the fixative that was used at like the very last day that they were up there.
So, as Maya was saying, once they arrived on the ISS, Clamp A was released because the females and the males were each put in volume 1 and volume 2. So the reason we released Clamp A was to make sure that they were able to see each other and mate. So, because that's what our experiment was entirely about. And then at the end of the 2 weeks that they spent up on the ISS, Clamp B was unclamped that had the fixative in it, which unfortunately killed the fruit fly, so that way they wouldn't procreate on the way back down to Earth, so that wouldn't mess with our results.
So our results and our analysis, we sent 20 flies up, and when we opened the tubes, we only found 10. So our experiment kind of did the opposite of what we hoped. When we thought we were gonna come home with more, we actually came home with less. So when we opened the Earth tube, we also had less than we had sent up. We had more than 10, but we did not have all 20. So our new hypothesis is that the males ate each other. We did not take into account that they have some cannibalistic characteristics when we set them up when we decided to use them. So this was definitely an unforeseen thing that we didn't take into account. But yeah, we're assuming that the males eat each other. I don't know, maybe
It most likely suffocated, or
So our last slide is just talking about what we found important and really why we think that this program is a great resource for all students and should be supported and continue. So I love this program because it gave us the opportunity to do real, like hands-on science. It was a very different setting than what you would have in, say, a high school classroom, for example. I love you, Miss Taylor, but we couldn't send experiments to space from our biology classroom. All right. So yeah, we got the opportunity to work with real professors, which gave us a lot of knowledge in the specific field that we were talking about. And for me, it motivated me to want to pursue research as I move on to college. That's one of the major requirements for me, is going to a good research school, because I found a passion for science, and I'm extremely excited to move on to college for that. Part of this was doing the experiment itself, talking to the mentors, and then also visiting the Kennedy Space Center, which is a great opportunity that this program provides that, again, I don't think I would have done otherwise, and has really pushed me towards my future career, which is going to be in aerospace engineering. So overall, this program was really developmental to me and gave me a lot of inspiration as to what I want to do in the future. I think it's a great opportunity.
Some of the benefits she mentioned were also some of the benefits I mentioned, because I said it gave us a more educational experience that we would have had more than instead of just sit in desk and have teacher talk to you about stuff. We actually got to do a hands-on portion, which feel like further interested me in science, because at first I was like just pushed into it by sis, and now that I'm done with it, I realized, holy cow, this was actually kind of cool. And I might do something in science in the future. Not 100% sure, but this furthered my interest in science.
So for me, the best part of the program was getting to see something that I worked on from start to finish go as far as it did. Most times in high school, no offense, Miss Taylor, but your projects are like predetermined by your teacher, and once it's done, you don't really go back to it. It might be like vaguely mentioned, just due to like state testing and stuff, where you have to know this like knowledge that you have learned from your previous projects. But this with the program, like groups have full control over what they want to focus their project on. So this program has gave me an insight to what college and career-based research is like. It's allowed me to understand what it's really like in the STEM field, and it has inspired me to pursue a career in the STEM field. And it's really important to get more kids, and honestly, specifically women, interested in the STEM field, just because, like, uh, it's a very male-dominated field.
Yeah,
We're all aware of that. And it's just important to get more people involved in that because it's what pioneers the future. And like, yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so I think this program really enhanced our knowledge of like real world science and really helped give us the opportunity to know what it would be like to research in like our future careers. And I feel that this program was really important and expanded our knowledge and education on the importance of experiments like these, and the work that goes into them. And it definitely taught me some patience and independence for perseverance.
This program is truly a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I can speak for all of my fellow researchers in that we are so incredibly grateful for it. Like they all said, it does truly make science a hands-on experience, whereas normally in the classroom, no offense, Miss Taylor, it's not, it's hard to realize how important science is to the society at large. And I think all of us have really grown as people with this. It's taught us, like Maya said, perseverance and creativity and thinking outside of the box and learning how to research. It's incredibly important, and I would advocate for it to the end of the year. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Experiment
18, 19, I am not 100% sure.
Might be something down the road.
Yeah, there might be something.
Yeah, thank you.
Very nice presentation. Enjoyed it. Michelle was part of the team. Thank you.
Yes, it is. Great job.
No.
Yes.
No offense.
Privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like privilege of the floor to make a statement or any comments to the board? Yes, sir. Would you, I believe that mic is on over there, or it's supposed to be. If you would state your name for the record, please.
All right, I just want to take a chance really quick to introduce myself. My name is Lonnie Coons, and I will be petitioning to run against Ken Blankenbush for the Republican nomination coming up this summer. I apologize for the tire. I came straight from work and didn't have time to change. Just a little bit about me. I was in the Army for 20 years, retired. My wife chose to come live up here, and this is where we're going to be buried because after 21 houses in 20 years, we're never moving again. Currently, I was just promoted last month from being an average truck driver to being the manager on the account that I work for. And now corporate's already looking at pull me up to them because they like what I do. So I don't want to take up too much time. I have some cards I'll leave on the front desk. I just wanted to introduce myself and feel free to reach out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Back to the public hearing on the CDBG funding for community development. Is there anyone here that would like to make any comments on that application? Cass, you're good? Okay, if there are no comments, we will close that public hearing. And we'll move to approving the January board meeting minutes. If there are no amendments, they stand approved. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 6. Cassandra, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee has met and they recommend to waive rules to act upon late resolutions.
Need a motion, please. Jess, do I have a second? Vinny, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries. Clerk of the Board reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Legislators received correspondence from Naturally Lewis regarding the IDA's uniform tax exemption policy revisions, the NISAC 2024 key priorities, and the Executive State Budget County Impact Report. There have been 4 RP 554 applications for corrected tax roll submitted for tax map number 071.00-02-18.000, 276.00-02-04.000, 129.12-08-07.000, and 013.00-01-20.000 that have been approved by Real Property Director Candy Aiken and Treasurer Eric Verkler. The following departments have submitted their 2023 annual budget reports: Buildings and Grounds, Building Codes, County Clerk, Junkyards, Office for the Aging, and the Treasurer. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Standing committee reports. Tom, would you lead us off with Finance and Rules, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to report that the county clerk's office switched to an IQS cloud-based recording software. The office was given the unique opportunity to be a beta tester for their vendor, IQS. This was an exciting time to be able to assist with the design of software that will be used in other clerks' offices across New York State and the country. Online record subscriptions and requests continue to rise, which helps bring in revenue to offset the costs of recording software. The lack of consistent snow has impacted the number of transactions and revenue from the DMV. I also have one motion. I move that the Lewis County Board of Legislators approve and adopt the 2024-2025 Finance and Rules Committee goals as presented at the January committee meeting.
Moved by Tom, Second. Jessica, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That carries.
And that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you. And we'll move to General Services Committee with Legislator Moorhan.
Solid Waste Director Kip Turk sent a letter to department heads, legislators, legislative board members, and the Lewis County staff, thanking everyone for their support and well wishes since the loss of their dear friend and co-worker, Larry Linedecker. He expressed appreciation to the solid waste crew, BJ Rogie, Jan Bush, Derek Nickel, John Studevant, Justin Mooney, Sean Lawrence, Denise Yost, Bob Peters, Jim Bush, and Walter Lehman for pulling together as a team and supporting each other through this tragedy. A special thank you went out to the Highway Department, especially John Reed, for allowing Aaron Stay and Todd Browdy to help out at the transfer station. The solid waste crew has decided to honor Larry by carrying on the way he worked every day, with pride, humbleness, and to have fun doing it. They are committed to keeping the department something to be proud of, because Larry sure was. I have a motion. I move that the Lewis County Board of Legislators approve and adopt the 2024-2025 General Services Committee goals as presented at the January committee meeting.
Moved by Andrea. Second, Josh. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries. Thank you, Andrea. Any questions for Andrea? We're on to Health and Human Services Committee with Legislator Moser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Community Services Department hired Anna Platts as Deputy Director effective January 1st, 2024. The Office of Addiction Services and Support, Substance Use Prevention Service Transaction and Planning has been paused. This is a result of a delay in finalizing closure and building logistics. In 2024, Community Services Department focuses will be Office of Mental Health 24/7 Crisis Service Department, Office of Mental Health Joseph P. Dwyer Vet Peer-to-Peer Program, and opioid litigation funded plan development and execution, with the focus being social detrimentals of health. I do have one motion, and I move that the Lewis County Board of Legislators approve and adopt the 2024-2025 Human Service Committee goals as presented at the January committee meeting.
Moved by Jessica, second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Jessica. And we'll move on to the board's rep on the Hospital Board of Managers, Legislator Nortz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start off by acknowledging some employees for the hospital. Employee of the month for September was Allison Kaiser. October was Bertha Snyder. November was Stanley Mathis. And December was Andrea Peters. Also to the January meeting, 3 people retired from the hospital. Wendy Fenton after 38 years, Sandra Oblick after 14 and a half years, and excuse me if I get this name wrong, Elvira Tanis, 21 years. That being said, there are 3 new additions to the hospital. First is Allison Kaiser. She's a nurse practitioner. She will be at the Beaver River Health Center. Amy Fair, nurse practitioner, also will be at the Beaver River Health Center. And Lacey Riley would be a nurse practitioner at the Copenhagen Health Center. I knew I'd get that. Okay, for the month of December, It was budgeted a loss of $247,000. There was an actual gain of $811. Year-to-date, the hospital came out 1.9 million above the budgeted break-even budget, excuse me. Since January 2023, the average operation for the hospital, for the operating rooms, excuse me, went from 128 to 184 in December. A lot of that is because of the new ORs coming online and also the addition of Dr. Zaire to the hospital staff. She's made a big difference up there. I would like to, at this time, talk, JC's survey came out last week, and there was two categories there that caught my attention and speak highly of the healthcare system we have. The first is healthcare access. 47% of the surveyors in Lewis County felt that it was excellent to good, our access to healthcare. Healthcare quality, 52% said that they felt it was excellent or good. On the downside, only 42% thought it was fair access to healthcare. Thus pointing out the need we have to expand our healthcare and try and encourage all we can to people to come in, family, get programs started to bring them in and educate the people in Lewis County. At this time, Mr. Kayer, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, would like to add some more that I probably forgot.
Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you. You did a great job. Pretty soon, I won't have to come up anymore. Two things to report. The building project is moving on schedule. We're looking at the end of March, completing phases 4 and 5. And if you're on State Street looking to the building, you will see 5 cutouts in the large brick wall. That's where the critical care unit will be. I continue to extend anyone who wants to see the project, give me a call. We'll get a hard hat and we'll get you in the building. And then the other thing I reported on, updated the Board of Managers on an interview request regarding Dr. Ackle. That occurred a week ago, Monday, this past Monday. Spent 35 minutes with WWNY, answered and addressed every single question that they brought forward, reported that out to the board. And in sharing that with you, I want to emphasize we've been incredibly transparent on matters related to Dr. Ackle, reported to the previous board, and then last month we reported to you, my colleagues and I, with our board chair, and then an extensive interview with local media. So if at any point you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'll continue to keep you informed. So with that said, are there any questions about anything else?
I'd just like to say, Jerry, thank you for leading the efforts on your construction project. It's noted that the operating suites have been utilized, a dramatic increase in December. And it was, I believe that investment in the hospital was critical and duly needed. And I just want to thank you for getting that done.
All right, thank you.
Okay, project managers, Jim and Nick Garrido.
Once again, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to report on the project. Things are moving forward. There's still a very positive attitude in the field. The contractors are working diligently on finishing up the last building. Nicholas will get into the details on what's actually going on in the building, and invite and offer, to give anyone a tour that'd like to see it. If you have any questions, we're always available. And we're also available because we live in the community to give anyone a tour after hours. Be our honor to do that. So for the most part, it's been a very successful project. All projects have different topics that we're working through with the contractors and the design team. And it's been a very nice project so far. And I don't expect anything else until we get to the finish line. Nicholas will give you some of the details.
I'll start down Board of Elections. Board of Elections moved in this past month, and haven't heard anything down there, so it seems to be that they're happy. the outdoor services building. That building is moving right along. We're picking up time on the schedule. Contractors are working hard. Flooring is going down, windows are going in the outside, ceilings are going up, paint's on the walls. It's starting to, it smells like we're getting to the finish line. Once the paint goes on the walls, people start getting in a hurry. They can feel it coming to the conclusion. So it's moving right along and very exciting. And hopefully the weather stays and we can get on the exterior site work and finish up early in spring.
Are there any questions?
Any questions for Nick and Jim? Thank you.
Welcome.
County manager report, Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it rather brief tonight, but I did want to acknowledge that there was a group of legislators and staff that took a trip, and we didn't quite make it to outer space, but we came close. We went to Osceola and visited the groomer barn and visited actually a lot of the awesome volunteers that work on our trail system throughout Lewis County. And we really had a great time and learned a lot about the snowmobile system in Lewis County. After 3 years of tours, we have now been to every single groomer barn and club in Lewis County. And I think that opportunity to thank those volunteers in person and learn about the challenges they face has been a good experience for everybody. I would also like to personally thank the folks from the Osceola Club. They were incredibly gracious. We had a wonderful lunch. We got to meet the new town supervisor, and we got to spend some time with the town highway superintendent. So all in all, I think it was a good day and time well spent. So yes, and I got to drive the groomer. So
And it's still in one piece.
yeah. So, but unless there's any questions, that'll conclude my report.
Any questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. And we'll move on to the county treasurer report.
Thank you very much. A few items I would note that were included in my written report. One, as you can see, the sales tax revenue is complete for 2023, and we were just slightly below the 2022 amount. So a good year, and hopefully that consistency will continue. I would note that our audit team from the State Controller's Office has basically finished up their work. We are expecting them to come back for a exit interview soon, and then they will finalize their process after that. I think it went quite well. Their focus on our purchasing card transactions definitely will, I think, identify some items that we will learn from, and they will, put in a written report. But I think it was, it went well in general. They also tackled a court and trust audit and a retirement system reporting audit at the same time. So they were busy. That's good. And last item, as I noted, I presented some information and also a letter from the Department of Health on our most recent IGT payment for the new board members. That's a new topic, and we will try and provide you some more information on that topic, probably at our committee meeting upcoming. The payments that we are required to pay are not, we don't have much notice on when they are required and the timing or the dollar amount. So it is a little challenging to plan for those, challenging to budget for those. So the letter I provided you was received on, was it a week ago, Friday? About a week and a half ago, and required a payment of $3.5 million within 4 days. That was a little unusual. Usually they give us about a week and a half. So the 4 days caught me by surprise. We were able to make that payment. Our cash flow was on hand that we could do that. But as I've said to you before, we've been pretty aggressive with our investments. So that, did take a little bit of a movement of some money to make sure we could do that. I actually registered a slight complaint with the Department of Health because I thought that was a little unreasonable to request that payment in 4 days. One thing I learned was that we are maybe a little unusual. Some of the other counties want the money to come to their hospital as soon as possible. So a little bit more background. We make the payment to the Department of Health, and then they turn around and pay our municipal hospital double that amount. So our hospital got $7 million probably this week, Jerry. In other counties, they want their hospital to get those funds as soon as possible. So they're waiting for that notice from the Department of Health and ready to pay it out, which I find interesting because on my end of it, on the county end of it, I would prefer to hold on to my cash if possible. So a little interesting situation I found, and always learning when I talk to the people of the Department of Health on this topic. And again, the more information we can get on when those payments are due and the dollar amounts of those payments will be helpful, and we'll try to continue to gather that information for the future. Bottom line, we are going to be over budget because that amount was much higher than expected. And I do believe we'll have another nursing home IGT payment to come in the not too distant future. We will be bringing forward a resolution to appropriate the funds to cover that deficit for this year's budget. So again, an unexpected amount. Great news for the hospital. They will be over their budget, which is good. Good for them, not as good on our end. So it's a quick summary of that IGT situation. And as I said, we'll give you a little bit more information in an upcoming meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Kerr?
Eric did a great job describing what's happened over the last week, and he's absolutely right. The short notice is incredibly difficult for the county, and we're appreciative for what he and Ryan have done. To answer the question why some counties are anxious is, I really think it speaks to what's evolved here over the last 6.5 years and the relationship we have formed with the county, and how we've been able to manage our budgets. If this payment took 10 more months or 12 more months, we aren't in a position where we're worried about making payroll. We're making payroll. And there are some county institutions, other county institutions in other counties that are struggling with just meeting those basic requirements. So I think if we keep doing it the way we've been doing, we'll be able to manage this and hopefully never be the entity that has to put pressure on the county for the quick payment. Thank you.
Yeah, I would reiterate, Chairman. I mean, I think the fact that our hospital's in a strong financial position is great. They didn't need that money immediately, whereas some of those other county hospitals probably having that cash flow, as Jerry said, just to make payroll is very important. So it's good that we are not in that position. And the cooperative relationship works. If we can pay the funds out to the Department of Health, we do it, and we've always done that, and that's great. And that allows them to receive the funding that is due to them.
Report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee reports that they have examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $3,436,336.64 and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Someone would like to move that? Tom, second by Jeff. Sorry. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. So resolutions, I don't see any that we're pulling out of the consent package.
We would have to pull number 32. That's just the audit claims one that has a roll call.
Are there any other resolutions that anyone would like to pull and vote on individually? If not, could I have a motion to pass the remainder of the resolutions as a consent packet? Moved by Tom, second by Jess. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Back to 32.
Resolution number 32-2024 is auditing and allowing claims in the amount of $3,436,336.64.
by Jeff, second by Herb. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself from the portion that's payable to me or based on vouchers that I approved.
Please note that for
Mhm.
Jessica. And this is a roll call.
Legislator Mosier,
Yes.
Legislator Nortz, Legislator Lindecker, Legislator Frost,
Yes.
Legislator Levicker,
Yes.
Legislator Moorhan,
Yes.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Yes.
Legislator Osborne,
Yes.
Legislator Calamus,
Yes.
and Legislator Dolhoff.
Yes. Do we have any other business? If not, motion to adjourn. Jeff, second by Herb. Any discussion? All in favor? We're adjourned.